The following program was produced by an independent community producer. The opinions expressed do not necessarily reflect those of the ECAT staff or board of directors.
Hello everybody, my name is Peter Evers and I have the privilege of being the CEO of Bamsi, Brockton Area Multi-Services Inc. And welcome to our new show, Humanity First. We've been providing podcasts for staff at Bamsi for the last 2 or 3 years, and I think we've probably done about 150 of them over that time. But now we're branching out a little bit and going live on TV. And so it's great to be here. And we're going to be talking about a number of things, but most of those things are about Bamsi and our community and who we serve and what we do and how we connect with members of the community. For those who have heard the name Bamsi, you may have seen our signs all over from Worcester all the way down to the Cape with many, many programs that we provide in the Brockton area. And this is recently we've been through a rebranding, so you may have seen a change in those signs. And I bet people are wondering, I wonder what that Bamsi program is. I wonder what they do. And the secret really is in the words multi-service. Bamsi is around 50 years old. In fact, in 2025, we will have our 50th anniversary. And so we'll have a big celebration around that. And about 50 years ago, Bamsi was formed in terms of a small clinic that provided services for children and adults and some OT and PT service, occupational therapy and physical therapy services. And over the last 50 years, we have grown in our community providing services of all kinds to everybody. We are a program that serves newborns all the way through to elders in terms of our elder services programs. And how do we connect with our community? We connect in so many different ways, but at the heart of what we do is our need and our vision and our thought about providing services that help people improve their lives. We don't do the improving of their lives. We help people do that. Whether or not we're providing residential services, we have around 90 different homes in our communities where we provide services for adults with developmental disabilities and adults with serious and persistent mental illness. And we do some things that really are at the cutting edge and not always as popular as you would think they would be. But let's talk about the world of substance use disorder for a little bit. We provide harm reduction services at Bamsi with our COPE programs, both in the Brockton and the Plymouth areas. What do? They meet people where they're at with their addiction. There is so much talk these days about what is happening with substance use disorder, including, of course, the disease of alcoholism, that we are finding different ways of providing treatment for people. And that treatment begins where the individual is. We have a real problem in our society with substance use disorder. For years and years, we've judged substance use disorder as a choice, as a lifestyle choice. We're really moving into a new period where we're recognizing that addiction is a disease like any other chronic disease, such as diabetes, for instance. And in fact, we're discovering that our recovery rates for people with substance use disorder are actually far above most of those other chronic disease disorders. When we begin to think about substance use disorder in this way, we begin to discard many of the old tropes about people who are making choices to live like that. And we understand that a disease is reversible, that people can recover from a disease, but we have to meet them where they're at. And in that sense, we are an organization that hands out syringes to people, clean syringes, so that people are not getting infections of the blood and dying from those infections. We're handing out Narcan. Narcan is an amazing drug that reverses the effects of an overdose. And we've saved many, many lives doing that. This wasn't always a popular thing to do. That program also works with people who have HIV and AIDS. again, something that when we were faced with this in the early to mid 80s, many organizations shied away from. Thought that they wouldn't be doing that kind of thing because there was so much stigma attached to it. Bamsi is one of those organizations who just says, if there's a need in the community, that's exactly what we're going to do. And we've been doing that over the last 50 years or so. Over the next few weeks, we are going to be talking to people who have had an effect on Bamsi, and Bamsi has had an effect on them. We're going to be talking to members of the community, important VIPs around issues that affect Bamsi and affect our community. And in fact, today on our show, we are going to be talking to one of our promising young leaders, Genka Chadwick, who is a program manager, and she's going to be talking about what Bamsi means to her and how she has shaped many of the lives that she has been involved with Bamsi, and actually in a long career before that. Over the next couple of weeks, we're going to be talking to the issue of racial and social justice. We're going to be examining access to services in the community. And we're going to have a member of our DEJA committee, that is our diversity, equity, inclusion, justice, and access. It's a bit of a mouthful, but that's why we call it DEJA, with Gwen Broadway, who's going to come and talk a little bit about some of the activities that we've been involved with in Bamsi over the last 3 years, especially post the murder of George Floyd. And then the week after that, we're very fortunate we're having the Mayor of Brockton, Mayor Robert Sullivan, come in to talk about some of those issues that I've been referring to around providing services for vulnerable members of our community, the issue of substance use disorder, and the issue of health and wellness in our community. So Bamsi is a very busy organization. Bamsi cares for people from zero all the way through to elders. And I will mention one thing, if I may, that every third Thursday of the month, Bamsi holds a food drive for elders who live in the Tower Blocks in Brockton. And we meet at Teen Challenge on the third Thursday of every month at 7 o'clock. And a group of amazing volunteers get together, unload 17,000 pounds of food from the Greater Boston Food Bank. Big shout out to those guys. They are amazing partners. And we have businesses that come and help us unload that food, put it into brown paper bags, and then deliver it to people. It is an incredible thing to do. And I will tell you that during the pandemic, when we were doing this, I delivered food to one day to a person in the Tower Blocks. And the next month I went back and that person said, you know, the last person I saw was you. So a month had passed for that person, that elder in our Tower Blocks where they had no human contact. We know that in our communities and in our world, in fact, that we do not pay attention to elder issues, that we are not putting enough resources behind that. And Bamsi believes in advocacy. Bamsi believes in targeting populations that are in need and making sure that our legislators know that monies need to go to those individuals. And elders are a really good example of that. Any society should be judged by the way that it treats their vulnerable folks and those people who have given their lives to the communities they serve and are in their elder years. And I think that's a very important thing that we have to keep fighting for at Bamsi. So that's a little bit about Bamsi. We're about 1,600 people strong, and we're always looking for people to come in and to our workforce and to build a career and to think about making Bamsi their home. It's 1,600 people is a lot of people. We'd like to be bigger. We have a number of vacancies in the organization, and that is from providing direct care in our residential programs to clinical care in our communities, work with children and families, all sorts of opportunities. And I would urge people to have a look at bamsi.org, which is our website, and go to careers and have a look at some of the opportunities. We're an organization who believes that the first day that you start, we begin working with you on a career and what a career might look like for you in human services. And there are so many opportunities. I would absolutely ask you to look at that website, bamsi.org. We're going to take a brief break now, and then we're going to talk to Genka, as I mentioned before. So we'll be back in a second.
Hi, I'm Jamie. I'm an essential worker here at Bamsi, and I'm a nurse. Nurses are essential here at Bamsi because as nurses, we really have the opportunity to make an impact. We have very small ratios, so we have the opportunity to really learn everything about the person served and be able to give the best care. It really serves such a great purpose for me as being a nurse and really why I came into nursing. Learn more about nursing opportunities at bamsijobs.org.
Giving a voice to the voiceless, pulling stories out of the shadows and putting them under the spotlight, making sure that each person is valued and cared for. This is Humanity First with Peter Evers, presented by Bamsi.
Welcome back, everybody, to Humanity First. And we have in the studio with us Genka Chadwick. Hi, Genka. How are you doing?
I'm well, Peter. How are you?
I'm very well, thanks. And so you are our first guest on the program, which
Wonderful.
is very exciting. And thank you so much for coming and chatting with us today.
Thank you for having me.
So let's start with you. How long have you been working at Bamsi? And I should say, of course, that you're a program manager of the organization.
I've been at Bamsi since 2013. I started off as a residential counselor, and in 2018, I decided to make the move to a program manager.
Yeah, and so you've been a program manager during COVID and the whole deal.
Yes, during the pandemic that none of us were expecting, but we made it through.
Yeah. And over the past 3 years, you know, we've been in a pretty ridiculous situation. In fact, nobody, unless you were alive and working in 1918.
No, I was not.
Nobody has faced this in the workforce. Tell us a little bit about you, though, as well, and how you got to. It's always interesting to know what path people have taken to come into human services, and there might be people out there thinking, "Is this the pathway for me?" Everybody's pathway is unique. What's yours?
So my pathway in human services is knowing that we're all humans first, and no one is exactly perfect. So it's a different way in doing everything for an individual and in yourself. So seeing their needs before your own needs and being sure that there's gratitude in all things. I put that forth with all of my individuals. No matter where they are, I meet them to where they need to go. Whether that be a skill that they need to know, whether they're doing job skills that they're trying to develop, it's understanding that I need to be that voice for them so that they can get the accomplishments that they need. And doing vice versa with my staff members in the house that I oversee. Yeah.
What was it? When did you first realize that you were made for this kind of work?
So I first realized I was made for this type of work in the 11th grade. We were asked to do an assignment on figuring out in your community who was not spoken for and why they were not spoken for. And what honed home with me is I've always sought out the elders and understanding where their wisdom came from. And I realized they were a very much forgot about population and understanding that no one really understood what their needs were and why we needed to care for them. Many of them, whether it be in our facility or other facilities, are not really spoken to figure out their needs. So it was an interesting project. And then after high school, I entered into the human services field in 2011 and then eventually came to Bamsi.
Do you think you would have come into the field anyway, but that was just a little guidepost along the way for you?
I think I would have probably ended up in some level of human services because I just like to help people. I'm very much of a helper, a can-do spirit, and understanding that everyone needs help.
Mm-hmm. So when somebody comes into the organization, what sort of words of wisdom do you give to those people as they're coming in and they haven't had much experience? Are you able to translate some of your experiences to them and sort of help them navigate that?
So translating to them, I am taking on 2 new individuals, and it's understanding that we thank the family for what they've been able to do for their individuals thus far, and trying to come to a common ground of understanding that although they may not be able to take care of them at home, we now can provide that same service so that they get to enjoy the lighter years with their relatives instead of overseeing medical appointments and finances. Let us take on that, what some people may call a burden, so that you can enjoy the lighter years within your family's life, whether it be your brother, your sister, your son, or your daughter.
Yeah. It's a really good point, because I think there are a lot of people that make assumptions about people who have developmental disabilities, right? And our job is to help those people reach their maximum potential. Tell us a little bit about some of the things that we do to help people reach their potential?
So reaching their potential is, of course, completing an assessment on them and seeing what they can already do.
Yeah.
And understanding that even if they complete a goal that may not be outlined in the way that we expect it to be done, they can still do it. So having ISP goals that they need to attend to. So whether you're assigning a staff member to make sure this individual is able to walk or feed themselves, prompting them, whether it be verbal or physical prompts, so that they're able to meet that goal. Because I'm a firm believer in either use the skill or lose it, or earn a skill so that you can continue to use it.
Yeah, so you're constantly assessing and working with people and presumably working with families. Are most of the people that live in your home attached to family? Do they visit on a regular basis?
I have some that do have family involvement, and then I have others, unfortunately, they do not have family involvement. And we take on that aspect of being their family because we see them more than sometimes we see our own.
Yeah. Shifting a little bit towards what goes on at Bamsi, what do you think about all of the offerings for training that we have here? Because you don't necessarily come into this job with all of the skill sets, right? What are some of the things that you've done training-wise that have helped you?
So training-wise, that has helped me is going to our organizational trainings, tapping into our brown bag trainings to see what aligns with the work that I need to do, and understanding that it's not just a paper push system, but it's aligning yourself with those trainings that you feel are needed for you with our tuition reimbursement. So looking up courses that BMC may be able to reimburse to a certain percentage, advocating to the staff members that do want to become LPNs to get into that program that BMC will help underneath a certain degree.
Wait, so Bamsi will help somebody in their career when they go to school, will help with some of those payments?
Yes.
Yeah, that's a great benefit.
It is.
And we encourage people, there's a career pathway for those people, right?
There's a career pathway, and understanding that you're not just working for the company ultimately is working for you. No one enters a company and expects to just be stagnant in that position. So it's helpful that BMC does offer those to our staff members and myself.
And in a way, you're an example of that, right? Somebody
Yes.
who bought a skill set, somebody who had a calling, somebody who heard something in a classroom a few years ago. I was going to say all those years ago, only a few years ago, and then committed to this career. We talk about wanting people to develop at Bamsi. Sometimes those people leave, right?
Yes.
And our job is to encourage them to come back, right?
Yes, our job isn't to encourage them to come back.
Yeah. So as we talk about careers at Bamsi, I sort of tell this story often that, when I was a kid, my father worked on the trawlers, and it used to say hands wanted on the doors looking for work. And I used to think, well, why don't you want the rest of that person? I like to think of as Bamsi as an organization that sort of takes care of and nurtures people. Have you found that over the years that you've been with them? And are you doing that with the people that you're working with?
I'm definitely doing it with the people that I work with, and I think I've found that. So understanding just because you currently don't pose the skill to be a human services worker, it's applied to the job and will give you the training that you need so that you can be an excellent human services worker.
What do you see for the future for yourself, Genka, in terms of where you want to end up?
So where do I want to end up? So to me, I feel like I have two different callings. If I choose to stay with BMC, of course, I do want to progress through the leadership and becoming an assistant director, and then one day, hopefully, a director. If I choose not to, then I do have a separate calling of midwifery, which is on the infant side of things.
Oh, right. Yeah. Well, I could see the connection with those things, and I think the organization has a duty to everybody that works with us, and we'll talk about this in terms of our diversity, equity, and inclusion work in the next few weeks, to make sure that everybody has the same opportunity to get that training and push on in their career. And I definitely hope that you do that, Genka.
I hope so too.
So as we begin to think about Bamsi and we think about your progression, are we doing things the right way? I mean, I think it's interesting when you have orientation and you say, these are our core values. Are there things that we should be doing differently as an organization? Are there things that we should be concentrating on? And that's probably a bigger conversation than this, but is there anything that strikes you as things that we should be doing differently?
I do feel like there's areas of improvement. With our training system, a bulk of it is on the program manager outside of the training department. So it would be having that staff member stay with the training department for at least 2 weeks before we would be seeing them in-house would make it a lot lighter on the program manager to make sure that person has all the upfront trainings that they need prior to laying within the home to work with an individual.
I think that's a good idea, and I think that's something that we are talking about in terms of improving our orientation period, making sure people have the skill sets that they need as they come, onto the floor. How about communication? Do you think the organization can communicate differently or in a better way?
With communication, I would like to see the agency offer some of our newsletters in multiple languages, doing 2. Most of our staff are bilingual or trilingual. And some of them, although they understand the basicness of English, sometimes I feel like it would hone home a lot more if they saw it in their native language.
Yeah, I think that's probably a good idea. And we often talk about elevator speech. We talk about why it is, what's your elevator speech about Bamsi? And I know I'm putting you on the spot, but we often look at why people leave organizations, and we're right to do that because we can improve. But what makes you stay? What makes you stay at Bamsi?
My individuals.
Yeah.
By far, my individuals. I deeply, deeply have a soft spot for my individuals.
That is so much the right answer. And I think, as we work with our people coming into the program, as soon as our staff make that connection, they tend to stay, don't they?
Yes.
And most every one of them says it's the individuals that I work with and the staff that help me work with the individuals. So I think that's a very common thing to hear in a human service organization.
Common, but 100% true.
Absolutely. Well, Genka, thank you so much for coming. It's been a pleasure to chat with you. And as we go forward, hopefully you can come back and we can talk about where you are in your career with Bamsi and get an update.
Thank you, Peter. Thank you for having me.
Thanks so much. Thanks, everybody. That was Humanity First, and we'll see you all next week.